Hey there, and welcome to Workforce Waves, the podcast for recruitment and staffing founders who are ready to grow, scale, and shake up the industry. I'm your host, Kirutika Munusamy, and I'm so glad you're here. This is where we have real, no-nonsense conversation about what it takes to build a thriving business in recruitment and staffing. Forget the fluff. We're all about the strategies that actually work, shared by the people who've been there and done it. A quick shout out to our sponsor, Ambrosial Automations. At Ambrosial Automations, we are kind of like your behind-the-scene partner for growth. We help recruitment and staffing businesses streamline their operations, bring in quality leads, boost sales, and scale, all without the risky upfront cost. We work on revenue share model, so we don't succeed unless you do. If you're curious about how it works, head over to ambrosialautomations.com for a free 12-month growth plan that's tailored just for you. All right, let's dive in. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Omar, the founder and managing partner of Roma Hired. Omar has partnered with global partner brands to support critical executive and board placements, working with clients ranging from Fortune 500 firms to private equity and high-growth startups. His exposure in North America, Middle East, and Europe has fostered a deep understanding of business cultures and evolving organizational challenges. Omar, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. So, Omar, tell us more about yourself, your background, and the role within Roma Hired.
Sure thing. So, based out of Chicago, originally started my career in executive search with Russell Reynolds while I was at the University of Chicago. Have been in executive search for a totality of 15 years now. Spent about 5 years with Russell, have been internally at a bank where I led talent acquisition, executive search firms before launching my firm, Roma Hired, about 5 years ago now. We work across, like you said, the U.S., Middle East, and European markets with boots on the ground and sector coverage in all three. I personally am a financial officer's practice, FOP or financial officer practice specialist. So anything capital markets, FP&A, tax, treasury, audit, that falls well within my remit. We do operate relatively industry agnostic. The only searches we really don't touch are just pure tech. And the other sectors that we cover, SaaS, healthcare, health tech, specialty pharma, manufacturing, CPG, food and bev, retail. So we work with the likes of PepsiCo, Yum Brands, Walmart Plus, Lowe's, and Aramco, and then the PIF, Barclays in terms of the financial services space. Private equity is about 60% of our book of business, supporting the portfolio companies, not at the fund level, more at the portco level. And we do work across CFOs, heads of FP&A, heads of finance, so on and so forth at the portfolio.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So what big trends are you seeing in the industry right now?
Sure. So there's a decoupling of executive hiring from the market performance. Traditionally, executive hiring has correlated to the S&P 500, but 2024 broke that trend. Despite a rising stock market, the leadership hiring trends that we saw realized a quarter-over-quarter decline. Executive search is now more sector-specific versus broadly following the market's performance. In terms of VC and market polarization, AI startups continue to attract large-scale funding. This is highly concentrated. Only 15 deals over $1 billion accounted for 26% of all VC funding, which is absurd, but we don't do a ton of AI work. Just give you some general insights here. VC exits are weak. Only 3.6% of exits were over 500 million, which is limiting capital recycling. Private equity is facing a fundraising crunch right now, which is obviously a huge, push for us, given most of our work is in the private equity space. Deal activity is growing. Deal values are up 19% in 2024, but fundraising declined at 30%, which is creating a lot of pressure on dry powder reserves. This has been an issue for fundraisers historically, but is even worse of a climate right now for founders looking to get, some capital in their pockets here. This could lead to more aggressive hiring within the portfolio companies as private equities seek more value creation. In terms of public market concentration after affecting executive hiring, the Mag 7 or the Elite 7 stocks now account for 33% of the S&P, which is a lot of market dynamics. If you were to exclude these Mag 7 from the calculations, the rest of the index has been actually very flat for the last 2 years. This imbalance is impacting hiring demand. Executives are not looking to track the overall market gains, or executive searches are not tracking the overall market gains. And there's a delay, or the delay in policy impacts and economic uncertainty. Obviously, the election is now over, or the U.S. election is now over, but there's an expected for pro-business policy shifts Post-election, these have not yet spurred hiring. It takes a little bit of time. There's a little bit of a lag
Yeah.
before policy is created where it actually is impacted on the company level or on the corporate level. The Fed's slower than expected rate cuts have also prolonged uncertainty. There's still a lot of volatility in the market, and this is causing companies to hold off or not have as much of an appetite for hiring.
Yeah. So, out of all the trends that you just mentioned, which was honestly great, what do you see as opportunity for Roma Hired, and or what other aspects do you see as challenges?
Look, I mean, so I would equate elite talent to a luxury good, meaning, even in a recession, Rolexes are still being sold.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a specific example. So Carnival Cruises, obviously with COVID, had a pretty rough, few years. Ton of layoffs, ton of restructuring, but we did a couple searches for them on their capital markets teams. So even in the most down of markets and in the most difficult of climates for companies, they have a lot of debt. They need to make money out of thin air. Capital markets does that. So to answer your question, there's opportunity, and I'm a very optimistic person, but there's always opportunity even in the most bleak of situations. The thing that we're most excited about, that we're excited to tackle is it is a problem. We shifted it to an advantage for us, or not an opportunity, but that is just the sheer number of deal activity that's going up in the private equity space. The more deals, the more acquisitions, the more we get opportunities to build out those teams as they make the acquisitions. So staying in front of our private equity clients, making sure that we're deepening those relationships and also expanding relationships to a few other firms. I will add, our goal in business, and I advise anyone that's trying to do this type of work, instead of working with 50 companies and doing one search per client, work with 5 and do 10 searches per. You're not going to have to pitch as much. You're not going to have to win as much business. And there's not as much need to learn about the company's culture and values and mission because you've already done that on the other 4 searches. So for us, building deep relationships with a select few clients is, what has really allowed us to, have the success that we've had so far.
Yeah. And you can find,
we'll continue to experience.
Got it. And you can always find, since you're working with that one partner, you can always find a good cultural fit to a candidate who has a good cultural fit to their company's vision and mission. So makes sense. And what do you see as challenges?
Well, there's a bit of a soft leadership hiring demand across most sectors. Aside from CEO and sales roles, most other functions are flat or declining in search volume. Companies are being more conservative in filling executive roles, possibly due to the macroeconomic uncertainty. Retention and compensation pressures. Compensation for executive roles remains competitive, but some functions like engineering and sales have seen compensations be pretty stagnant, if not even decline. And then in a market or an economic climate where inflation and volatility is just, rampant, you would think that all positions would be making, call it 8 to 12% more year over year. But that is just not the case across the board. Again, this is something that candidates will be incurring as a loss. It's something we have to coach and guide candidates on, where what goes up will come down. It's down now. It will come back up in good time. Companies are trying to balance cost control with retaining top tier executive talent. So instead of hiring new folks, there's a lot of retention packages being issued to ensure that their current teams don't leave. So it's a lot more just contain the ship versus, trying to build as the ship has sailed. Private equity's hiring dilemma, despite the strong deal flow, PE firms are struggling to maintain hiring momentum. There's a lot more demand. The supply of CFOs out there has not increased. It's not like there's just more people. So it's a supply and demand pinch that we're seeing there. Fundraising constraints may limit their ability to invest in leadership expansion within their portfolio companies, which obviously impacts us. And there's a lot of still regulatory and policy uncertainty, given inflation remaining above targets, treasury yields still being high. Companies are very hesitant to make very large scale and senior leadership moves. Any delayed rate cuts would continue to keep hiring sluggish, and we don't anticipate there being more than a 0.5 point, cut in by the Fed for rates.
Okay. So are there any big initiatives that Roma Hired is working on at this moment?
Yeah, so continue to expand our venture capital, private equity, and growth equity partnerships. We are, given the unique challenges in private equity and venture capital hiring specifically, we are working with our firms that we already work with and engaging with new firms to provide leadership solutions that drive operational efficiency. We're assisting private equity-backed companies to navigate leadership transitions as they're optimizing operations post-acquisition. and we're developing some market intelligence that will give some more color and deeper insights into market trends and compensation benchmarks to inform hiring strategies. In the private equity space, searches are very opportunistic in nature, meaning private equity company acquires this company. Well, they don't know what their leadership changes are going to be day one, before the acquisition is made. But immediately when the capital is allocated, we step in, take a look at the team, give counsel as to whether or not these are the individuals that could see the sale through or see the asset through disposition. So knowing that it's very opportunistic, just staying in front of them, timing is everything, but especially in these markets, it's ultra sensitive. We're also leveraging our executive compensation data to help companies attract and retain top talent. And we are building out our advisory practice, which is similar to what you see Ernst & Young and KPMG do when it comes to setting strategy for their clients. With regards to transformational work, Lorraine Kay, who is out of Madrid, leads our advisory practice. She's ex-Milliman, ex-EY, and is basically, when you hear of, let's say there's a transformation in audit processes or a transformation in succession planning or Lorraine steps in with myself to execute their advisory needs. So it's almost like a strategy sprint. And then once we've stood up the function or the business unit, we then come in on the executive search side of things to ensure that the human capital infrastructure is where it needs to be and execute the hires that are needed to actually work and execute on the strategy that we've set forth. Got it.
Can you also tell us about the priorities or the goal that you have for 2025?
Sure. So deepening sector specific expertise, knowing that there's a big shift towards working with search firms that are not only boutique, but also specialized within certain functions. The financial officers practice is what we will continue to push on. We have added operations as well as operations and strategy, in addition to the financial officers work that we do, expanding our reach globally within private equity and venture capital and growth equity shops specifically, enhancing more data-driven solutions. We use PitchBook, we use LinkedIn Talent Insights, which is a pretty cool tool it's actually the most accurate data I've seen around human capital. So we're using these tools to give better market intelligence, better execute searches when it comes to target universe of companies that we're going to go after for search purposes, but also, and equally as important, educating our candidates that we work with, because we have our clients are the firms that we work with, but our clients are also the candidates that we place there. We wouldn't make the money if the candidate didn't exist. So giving them insights as to what the market is reading has been instrumental, but is going to be ultra helpful when it comes to, for example, engineering and sales not increasing in market value. Some people are confused as to why they have to take a lateral move in their next opportunity compensation wise. Giving them the data behind this versus just telling them what the trend is builds a lot of trust and deeper relationships.
Okay. So given that engineering is a division or the industry subsector is not doing that great, how do you think people or the firms should tackle it?
Be honest, lean on data.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer in telling the good, the bad, the ugly to clients and candidates included. And sometimes, I mean, even when you saw the shift in when COVID hit, I'm sure you noticed that there was a lot more entitlement on the side of candidates where, what do you mean I have to go into the office? I want to be remote. I want to be paid more than market value. That pendulum. So the pendulum was in favor of companies prior to COVID. COVID hits, goes in favor of candidates or employees. And actually, you can bet your 2 cents that is definitely shifting back. It is not fully back to where it was pre-COVID, but giving guidance and coaching a lot of these individuals as to look like, I'm sure you would love to be remote, but there's 3 other candidates in play right now that are willing to make the relocation and be in the office full time, and they're not asking for the money that you're asking, and they're better than you, if I'm being candid, right? So just being very candid and transparent. Some people appreciate it, others don't. It's okay for those that don't, because we wouldn't want to work with them anyway. I can't expect reciprocity when it comes to being honest and transparent if I'm not being honest and transparent with them. You'd mentioned a couple other priorities and goals, expanding our international reach, knowing the global markets. There's a big shift in Riyadh right now specifically. Well, not right now, but has been going on since MBS took power. And then, like I mentioned earlier, our advisory practice led by Lorraine is another big push for us for 25 and beyond.
Yeah, that's great. And what else or what other initiatives are you taking regarding international recruiting?
Well, we've given a couple other different products to the market to just be a little bit different than what some other search firms are doing. To answer your question, it's a matter of search is search, recruiting is recruiting, right? It operates industry agnostic, it operates geographically agnostic. But understanding the cultural norms of different markets is going to be key to being able to adapt, but also gain, the respect and trust of those partners that we work with. In the Middle East, I speak Arabic, so it helps, to build that trust relationship. In the West, I, graduated from the University of Chicago, spent my entire career working in the U.S. So for anyone that's looking to do international work, I would say do local first. Like we built our name in I built my name in the US, then I started my company in the US, then we expanded to Europe, then we expanded to the Middle East shortly thereafter. But unless you have cultural understanding of how those markets work, working with a Chinese bank is very different than working with JP Morgan Chase, right? That's one. Two, I do believe that if you do not have boots on the ground, like you want to recruit in London, great. If you don't have any recruiters in London, I wouldn't do that. There's outside of time, time zone issues. There's a way that people appreciate being spoken to. There's trends and industry trends that are specific to those geographies. So, we'd love to work in Asia Pac. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to do work there, but we don't have presence there. So in the effort of not overreaching and diluting our brand equity, we'll stick to where we're good at and where we've had success. There's more than enough money to go around, even if we were to never expand to another continent again.
Yeah. Right. That was insightful. So what is Roma Hired's vision for the next 2 to 4 years or 5 years, perhaps?
Continue being disruptive, continue leveraging executive search through tech and data to give more informed decisions. Our goal is to continue doubling our revenue and top line growth year over year, which we have been doing for the last 4, thankfully, knock on wood, fingers crossed. And so, a big push for us, like I mentioned earlier, is solidifying our reputation as the go-to partner for private equity, venture capital, and growth equity-backed firms in need of transformational relationship. We will be expanding our services to leadership coaching through a company that I launched in January called Tada, and appreciate the chuckle. And those are more to enhance organizational design, also building on our advisory practices, but we work to coach individuals up in their organizations and out into new opportunities. It goes hand in hand with what Roma Hired does as a firm. And then we're looking to expand our thought leadership and market influence. So podcasts like this, publications, networking events, CFO summits. So just being more present at these engagements. I've made it a point in my career to just surgically dismember searches when it comes to the execution of them, and let that be the reason for why companies work with us. And so now, while I will continue to do that, don't get me wrong, I also not need to start rubbing elbows with individuals that, unfortunately would be in a golf setting or a little bit more, dinner activity than I might have been doing. So just adding a little bit more to the, getting out there and hitting the pavement component of things. In terms of the last thing I'll mention, there's a shift towards more agile and strategic executive hiring and using boutique firms. So helping firms adapt to rapidly changing environments and business landscapes by prioritizing their leadership agility, advising companies on succession planning to future-proof their leadership teams has been a big push for us as well, and will continue to be, what we're going to be doing in the next, call it 1 to 2 years.
Got it. Well, that was a great episode, great session. I think our audience have a lot to learn from this episode. So I guess this is going to be the wrap. So that's the wrap for today's episode of Workforce Pulse. Huge thanks to our guest Omar for sharing his incredible insights on all the key topics that he touched. Now, before we go, Omar, where can people find you if they want to connect or learn more about your work?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Omar, last name Mryan. So feel free to connect with me. My email is omar@Roma, ROMA, hired, HIRED.com. If anyone has questions, comments, concerns, I will happily address them. I make it a point to, just philanthropically help individuals, for about a couple hours a week. So any questions, comments, concerns, use me as a resource. More than happy to help and assist. And any questions, comments, concerns are obviously welcome. So Appreciate having me. Looking forward to continued conversations here, and hope you have a fantastic day.
Yeah, perfect. Make sure you follow Omar on LinkedIn and check out Roma Hired's website. To our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And one more time, if you are stuck in the grind of manual processes or struggling to grow, we can help you optimize operations, bring in leads that convert, boost sales, and scale without the upfront risk. Head over